hacked into Fiancee's secure folder and found multiple affair proofs, then left her with my ring forever. Been together 6 years, proposed about 3 years ago but been unable to get married due to COVID. We live in New Zealand ATM but family are in the UK, so we were hoping to do it with family. So I helped my so upgrade her phone and noticed it said that there was 6 gigabytes worth of data in the secure folder, Samsung, and I asked her if she wanted it and that normal passwords aren't working for me to transfer it. So she unlocks it and I go away to continue the transfer. Any other time in my life there's no way I would have looked at what was there, but the day before she said she needed to go out for a bit, being lockdown so I thought, like to go off and clear her head. But yesterday, as she was leaving, I hear the side gate rattle. I looked out of the toilet window and there she is, acting a little weird, expecting her to just carry on with what she was doing, but she just sort of stared at me with a smile. I sort of just look back at her thinking nothing of it, and it starts to get awkward, and then I notice a cooler bag. I'm like, why didn't you bring it through the house? She goes all weird and strangely does give an explanation and says something on the lines of, you know me, I'm just weird. So alarm bells ringing, few other random things started to click together, and I'm like, no ducking way. She gets back later and explains herself well enough, and I decided I was maybe just being silly. So yeah, phone full of videos of my so-called friend and her with pictures of them kissing her, playing with toys I've not even seen. I'm in a bad way right now and not sure what to do. I know it's my fault. I got promoted to a stressful position and I've been absent and distant, and now all I want to do is fix it and I can't. Can't go through this again. My ex before I ended up in a similar situation. Edit, just adding, unfortunately, I couldn't contain myself when I found out, so she knows I know. She gave a bunch of reasons that she felt lonely and felt the spark had gone. I wasn't there for her, things like that. I was packing my bags because I just couldn't handle that she would cheat on me with someone like him. Used to sell pills, missing most of his teeth because he uses, split from his wife who he has a 10-year-old with because she kicked him out. But she convinced me to stay, and unfortunately, as I have no family here or friends good enough to stay with at that short notice, I've stayed, but it's 3 a.m. now and I can't sleep. Edit 2, sorry I'm just venting now, I should sleep, but I feel like the room is spinning. So when I first met her, ironically, she had not long got out of a 6-year relationship with some she described to me as jobless amongst other things, and that he had cheated on her. I just want to say I consider us upstanding normal working professionals, just to paint the picture. But she was sort of a punk rock type of girl and I'm a geeky tech guy, and at this point I had been so royally screwed over by my ex that I'd been single for about 3 years. My ex had twisted me into pushing away my family, my friends. I quit my job because I had become a depressed recluse, and I genuinely to this day don't remember some things that went on at that time, like genuine blackouts in memory. I became this other person. She eventually decided after she got pregnant that she could get more money by kicking me out. I was left with nothing. I ended up staying in this abandoned old people's home because it was cheap. They rent rooms to make it look lived in to deter vandals. Then I found out she had been sleeping with someone I thought was a friend, and he moved in. So not only did I have no one, my friend basically took my family from underneath me. I also had a self-employed business doing IT repair work. All that was gone. I eventually came to terms with things, and eventually I had to leave. I wasn't coping. I moved 4 hours away to be with family, and I became a chef working for my brother-in-law. 3 years go by and I'm still traveling back and forth as much as I can and threw myself into agency work as being at home, knowing my broken family state. Being a home felt like a prison. So my average weeks were 12 to 16 hours days, 7 days a week. I get to the point of basically trying to work myself to death. I really just wanted the world to end. I was paralyzed, not feeling like I could move on. I took on a job where I met the only person I know would have my back no matter what, and he was my head chef. He helped me heal my soul, and I got to the point of feeling good about myself and seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Then I met my fiancée. She was exiting, just left her PR job to go traveling, not long left her ex, and I was hooked. Spent the whole day working together, couldn't keep my eyes off of her. I was just taken in by everything she had to say. When it came time to sign of the timesheets for the temps, which the head chef always did, he handed hers to me. I signed it off and handed it to her. She waited for me to ask her for her number, but I could bring myself to say the words, and it got a little awkward, but she left and I found her on Facebook later that day. The rest is history, as they say. She saved me, told me that my ex doesn't have the power I felt she did, would call me with my daughter on the phone but then take over and emotionally blackmail me into giving more money, and me feeling guilty for it. Fell head over heels, and it was just perfect. She was planning to go traveling and not long got back from New Zealand and wanted to save up some money and head back out again, so we made a plan, worked hard and saved the money. We traveled Southeast Asia, Bali, and a year around Australia. We then went to New Zealand. I started out as a chef and she managed to get work doing data entry. While working as a chef, someone there realized that actually I'm really good with IT and knew someone looking for people like me, and it was better paid and sort of better hours. This turned out to be the friend who cheated with my fiancée. Years went by. I left that IT job and kept in touch with said friend, but didn't really hang out as he was far into pills and things like that and made me uncomfortable. I took on a position at a global tech company and started earning the most money I've ever earned in my life doing something that I had always done self-taught. Basically, I started going through the ranks and taking on more and more, and I started to develop imposter syndrome, and it really affected my mental state. I found it hard to do the things I enjoyed in life, but I hunkered down because we had a dream of owning a house together. My fiancé was working for a charity and life seemed relatively good. Wasn't perfect, but we had a common goal, and the rest, as they say, is history. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to spill this from my mind. I made my way to our room and the sounds of my cheating wife left no doubts. For the sake of my sanity, I will refer to wife as Ellie. My best friend's name is Omar. Not real names. Ellie and I met in college and hit it off right away. When we started dating, I was not really assertive. You could accurately say that it was her showing interest and desire in me that made me really begin to value myself and work past a ton of insecurities I used to deal with. I was just a hard-working, nerdy smart dude, but had never had any real luck with women. To me, it was almost incredible that someone as smart and beautiful as her would show as much interest in me as I showed in her. We both have always been driven, which led to us separately building small businesses of our own by the time we graduated college. We moved in together after graduation and a year later married. We had, what I considered, a very strong marriage. We had weathered family tragedies, professional challenges, small and large disagreements, and always managed to work through everything, and I felt it always made us stronger. Ellie has always had a huge social circle that included a fair number of men, but I never thought too much about it as she never did anything that raised flags, since all social outings seemed to always be as a large mixed group, and I came to trust her closest friends. As our 10-year anniversary was coming up, I decided to bring up the topic of starting a family. Early on in the relationship we had together decided to compromise on the size of our family. I wanted kids, she wanted none or at most one, so we agreed on having one. Now 10 years into our marriage, secure economically and thinking how healthy our relationship was, I brought the topic up. I can't help but think me doing this may have started this whole chain of events. A little over 3 months ago, she tells me she is going out with her friends to have some fun. She basically told me she needed to unwind as she was getting stressed about me asking about having kids again. That night she comes back at 4 a.m., starting with that day our bedroom goes completely dead. In our relationship, Ellie has always initiated as much as me, in fact on average I would say more often than me, and for rare periods when we were dealing with traveling I can't think of us ever going more than 5 days without some form of intimacy. She starts going out more, guarding her phone, avoiding me, all this stuff I had never seen from her before. After about 3 to 4 weeks of this, I talk to Omar, my best friend, and he points me to Reddit and I start reading. Eventually I decide I need to do something about this as it's beginning to put me in a bad mood. I don't just want to trust her, I like to trusting my wife, I need to trust her. Well, needless to say I get my hands on her phone and check her calls and texts, feeling like a complete monster violating her privacy. Turns out that one of the people new to her social circle is an old high school flame from before we were together. The more I dug, the more I found. I think the fact I'd always trusted her completely made her complacent about hiding the affair better. I found out that during that party a month before, he had attended, and they spent all night catching up and ended up kissing, not even really hiding it from her whole group of friends, and then conveniently going to the bathroom at the same time. Up to this point, all I had felt has been this giant pit of anxiety in my stomach, a part of me trying to hold on to the image of the woman I thought I had married, a kind of self-delusion. But the anger and sadness start getting overwhelming, made worse by the fact that she seems oblivious to my sudden indifference. She didn't notice I had stopped making romantic gestures. I felt like I was breaking inside. Finally, a month ago, I decided to catch them in the act and I tell Ellie I am going to visit my cousin for the weekend. He lives 3 hours away. But instead I go stay with Omar, who has been helping me record and copy everything. I waited and sure enough, she brought him to our house, to our bed. I snuck in the house and made my way to our room and the sounds left no doubts. They were so into it they didn't notice me standing there at the door recording them with my phone. I literally felt something in me break, like something in my soul snapped so hard I could hear it. My veins went ice cold and something like a 10-ton anvil had been dropped on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I went numb. This next part one can only tell you what Omar says happened because I only remember parts of the next few minutes. According to Omar, who I had brought as a witness, apparently I walked up to them, pulled the guy off the bed, and then Omar pulled me off of him. I remember Omar holding me down on the ground. After that there was the normal hysterics of being caught. I went no contact for 5 weeks and began working with a lawyer preparing for the worst. Omar served as her contact point during that time since I simply didn't want to talk with her. Ellie contacted my family and told them that we are having problems. After the 5 weeks of NC we met and talked. She was remorseful, told me it wasn't my fault, that it was all her doing, her responsibility and her decisions. We decided to go to marriage counseling and at least explore if there is anything salvageable. Sitting here I can't believe that even after that, I still love her. I am disgusted with myself that I have thought about her well-being, about her happiness. I especially hate that now I have to question our entire relationship. Was it just now that she got brazen about cheating, or has it happened before and I didn't bother looking far enough or was too stupidly trusting to see it at all? It's been now almost a month since deciding to try marriage counseling, and my questions to those who have already gone through this are the following. 1. Is it possible to reconcile without feeling that you lose some self-respect? 2. How long does the anger to sadness to numbness, rinse and repeat cycle last? I'm getting exhausted of the constant emotional roller coaster. 3. I find myself really loathing the whole idea of having to essentially be on the constant lookout. Is that a sign of me wanting out or just me being exhausted, 'cause I honestly can't tell? I'll take any advice, honestly. I love her, I've been head over heels for her since we met back in college, I want to work it out. Is it actually possible, and if it is, will it ever resemble what it used to be even remotely? Update. After reading everyone's replies and the messages, I took the weekend to let it all sink in and hardened my resolve. I came to the conclusion that I was never going to be able to live with myself if I stayed with her. Staying and working on it would mean having to sacrifice a significant portion of my self-respect. I also realized that I want no part of a relationship that would require me to be in a state of constant vigilance for signs of betrayal. So I decided to push the proverbial red button and nuke it all. Here is how it all went down. Monday, I woke up early to an unexpected surprise. When I opened my eyes, my Johnson was greeting me at full attention. Guys, I can't stress how surprising that was to me, considering that since finding out about Ellie's affair I had not had morning wood. It was like my body was saying, hell yeah, we are gonna get this done today and be done, ready for something new. I actually laughed so hard at seeing it that Omar and his wife came to check in on me thinking I was having some sort of mental breakdown. I got up, got ready and called Ellie's dad and told him we needed to talk. I met up with him about an hour before our MC. The whole drive there I was surprised at how calm I was about it. I could still feel an ocean of emotions somewhere deep down, but on the surface I was not feeling anything. We met up at a little mom and pop breakfast place near his house and we sat down. Ellie's dad is a good man, lighthearted and funny, but more importantly he is level-headed. I thanked him for how he and his wife had treated me all these years and told him I was sorry to have this talk with him. He listened patiently, but as I started telling him why I was going to be divorcing his daughter he lowered his head. I could tell he was ashamed and angry, not at me, but at Ellie. He told me he understood, and I asked him to not tell Ellie as I was going to be telling her within the hour. He agreed, we shook hands, and then he told me to take care. I hated having to shatter his image of her. I debated with myself if I should have asked him to care for her, but I shot down that instinct because he is her dad. Of course, he will care for her, but also it is no longer my business to care for her, she is a big girl. Next, I went to our scheduled MC session. I had been rehearsing all day Sunday what I would say to her and how I would say it. I wanted to essentially emotion-proof my actions and words for the next few hours. I sat there in the parking lot for 10 minutes and just prayed. I hadn't felt like I wanted to or could since all this started. When we sat down for MC, Ellie was wearing one of the dresses I loved to her in, and for a split second I forgot everything, but then the visceral disgust and anger I felt pushed the attraction completely out. I let the counselor get things going like our previous sessions, and after about 10 minutes of her and Ellie talking, I interrupted. This is how it went. Excuse me, I have a few things I need to say and to Ellie and that I wanted to be able to say here, with a neutral third party. If at any point I am interrupted, I will simply leave and that's that. Ellie, I have come to realize I do not need to know if this was the only time you cheated. It doesn't matter. I do not need to know how long it went on for. It doesn't matter. I do not need to know how many times you cheated. It doesn't matter. I do not need to know why. Even if there was a good reason, a perfect why, it also would not matter. The only thing that matters is that you did. I know now the only facts that matter. You were never going to have children with me. At this, Ellie opens her mouth to interject and I started walking to the door, so she immediately backed off. You were going to string me along for however long it would take. You were going to cheat on me sooner or later. This is when the waterworks started to open up for her. You do not respect me or love me. The counselor begins to look like she is about to interject and I respond by taking another step towards the door, which ends that. My lawyer is filing for divorce as we sit here, and as of about an hour ago, your father knows the entire truth of what has been going on. Do not contact me. From here on out, the only person we will communicate with are lawyers. These are the last words we will ever exchange. Goodbye. I walked the last few steps to the door and walked out. As soon as I closed the door, I heard a wail the likes of which would haunt people's dreams. She scrambled out of the office pursuing me and tried to stop me, telling me how sorry she is and how we can start a family and to give her a second chance, as she cried hysterically throughout. I pushed past her and got in my car and left. At this point, that ocean of emotions that had been quietly hiding underneath it all started roiling and I was barely holding it in. I drove to my parents' house and sent the text message I had planned to Ellie's best friend's husbands. When I got home, my old man was at the store, but Mom could tell I wasn't well. She has always been able to read me like a book. I told her I needed to tell her and Dad something important, and we sat down and waited. About 30 minutes later, Dad arrived. I poured it all out. The more I talked, the more I felt that ocean of emotions emptying and all that pain pouring out of me. When I finished talking to my dad, he just held me as I cried into his shirt for a solid 20 minutes. When it all ended, I felt spent and oddly at peace. I have arranged for Omar to receive a Harley he has been eyeing for a while. He has been more than a friend to me, and I am going to try my best to be as good a friend to him as he has been to me. I can't wait to see his face. I think this is the last time I will post, as it should be the end of this story. I just want to thank you all. Would have never thought that I would find sound and sane advice from strangers on the internet. I know that it will be a long road ahead, that I will still need IC to deal with the aftershocks of this debacle and rebuild my ability to trust. I have to hope that little by little all this pain and sadness and anger will go away, like a roto-rooter for my soul, if I do the work. Now begins the rest of my life, and I can honestly say I am looking forward to it. Caught my GF having lasagna party and doing green tea, dumped her immediately. Okay, to preface, I'm from Britain, so when I say college I mean grade 12 to 13 and uni is grade 14 to 16. I also have ADHD and had struggled with depression a lot when growing up, and my girlfriend, I'll just call her that for simplicity, has had a long history of depression. I'm not sure how these will factor in the story, but it's just more context. I met my girlfriend in October 2019, the first year of college, grade 12. We got along very well as we both loved the same music and films, etc. Fast forward to about March of 2020. At this point we were inseparable. Not one day would go by without us talking for hours on FaceTime, Snapchat, or in person. I had also fallen out with a lot of my friends and only had like 2 left, and she stuck by me all the way. Then obviously COVID hit and we all went into lockdown. We grew even closer throughout lockdown to the point that we would go to sleep together every night on FaceTime. I know, a bit cringy. Fast forward some more to October of 2020, we were out of lockdown and in a second and final year of college. We went on a date and had our first kiss, and promptly after we started dating, we used to say it was 2 years of dating because we basically were before we actually made it official. All was well until I started noticing things. She had joined a new group of friends. They were all quite edgy and pretentious, but I didn't care until a boy of the group, let's call him Owen, got increasingly closer to my girlfriend. It got to the point where, if her and I had some argument, I would see them walking around together, her seemingly really happy. This started to make me paranoid, especially after seeing posts on Instagram of them together, just them, in a store. Obviously me being paranoid took it up with her, and she would argue that I'm being paranoid and overprotective. That's until I looked through her phone. I know I shouldn't have. I find texts with him saying, "Owen, I love you MG, I love you more XX," and crap like "your lips are really pang." Pang being British slang for hot. After about a week of arguing and a lot of sleepless nights, I finally got her to stop talking to him. Fast forward to December 2020, all was well until one night I was round hers. Her phone goes off and it's a notification on Snapchat from a different name, so she starts trying to grab the phone really shadily. I open it and it is Owen, but she had changed his name. It was 3 a.m. and he texted her pictures of them together in a pub. I flipped out and started crying because at this point I was starting to trust her again, and she seemed actually regretful, and she promised to never talk to him again. She actually told the truth, as he started being really weird to some other girls in the group, touching them up and pretend humping them, etc. So they all basically told him to duck off. Fast forward to April of 2021, things were actually really good between us and I started becoming less paranoid. She had found a new friendship group and they seemed really nice. They were all girls and a lot of them were in the year below. May was our last month there and it was the final year, so she started becoming increasingly worried about the fact that she was taking a gap year, but I was going to uni. Fast forward to September of 2021. Over the summer she had started seeing her friends almost twice a week. Obviously, I didn't care about that, but she had started smoking green tea with them more and more. Again, I didn't care, but I think I should have. As the closer it got to me going to uni, the more she would go out, and the more she would smoke. She now had a job full-time to keep her busy in the gap year. This meant she was only free every weekend. I didn't care much because as long as I got to see her I was fine. Fast forward to now, I'm in uni about an hour away from her on train, very easy to get to, but for the past 2 months she had not seen me in person and she had become increasingly shadier. Every week she would come up with some excuse about why she couldn't come to mine. She would also frequently go days without talking to me and she would blame it on her friend not having a charger for her phone. This happened multiple times. On Halloween she told me she had a party with the girls just round one of their houses. She promised that the only guy going was one of the girls' boyfriends. I obviously trusted her. She also told me that her job had changed her hours so she couldn't see me for 2 weeks and that the week after that, this weekend 26th to 27th, her brother was coming home for the weekend so couldn't see me. I believe her. Yesterday, I hadn't heard from her all day and assumed she was picking her brother up at the train station. I looked at Snap Maps and it said she was at the train station 2 hours ago. I shrugged it off thinking maybe she was waiting for him. I go on Instagram, which I use about every 3 months. I see that someone had tagged her in a post the day before. This was weird given the fact that she never had been tagged before from what I remembered. I click it, it's the Halloween party and it's a photo of her and some girls in a room full of about 8 boys on an account she doesn't follow. However, she had liked the post. I obviously lose my crap and bring it up with her. She doesn't respond. I look on Snap Maps to see where she is. She had turned her maps off, so now I know she had looked at my text to her. I now get extremely annoyed. I go back on that account that posted it. It's some boy. I look at the other tags at a girl my girlfriend always said she hated. I see on her story that she was at my girlfriend's house 2 hours ago. Next story was of 5 boys sat on a couch at my girlfriend's house with my girl with them. One of the boys is Owen. I then find that for the past 5 to 6 months she had been meeting these boys without telling me and smoking green tea and doing acid with them round their houses. I feel like a ducking idiot. She constantly gaslighted me, hit me, manipulated me, and I took the brunt of it because I genuinely fell in love with her. I don't know what to do. I keep thinking about her and that fact that she most likely cheated on me. I can't sleep and I think I'm going to spiral back into depression. Wife waited for me to sleep and screwed my best friend on my bed. Now says she doesn't remember it. Well, I don't know exactly how to begin this. Guess I'll start with a little background. My wife has had moments of weekend commitment before, mostly kissing another dude 2 years prior to our wedding after we were engaged, kissing a girl from her work who was super sexual and flirtatious with her while drunk, a major incident during our honeymoon, drunk, maybe pilled, hospital couldn't conclude any forced sexual activities/pills. And I knew my friend through a mutual friendship and we became very close very fast. I forgave every instance, and give her space while she went through therapy for the honeymoon incident. And always been grateful last 5 years. Until last weekend. A year and a half ago, I moved away from the city to a family ranch to help revitalize the farm and support our grandparents who are aging and getting old and frail. This was a major change in our lifestyle. My best friend comes down every couple of weeks, making the 2-hour trip from the city to hang out for the weekend and go back on Sundays. Back when I lived in the city, we hung out almost every weekend as a group. And honestly, with the pandemic, it's been nice to have somebody outside of our immediate circle to hang out with every few weeks. Now I've known the guy for about 10 years, just 2 years less than my wife, and the guy has been pretty interesting as a friend. There've been a couple of odd instances where there was almost a sexual tension between the two of us. However, I'm not bi or not straight, and I thought he wasn't either until I realized what happened this weekend. I live in the cottagecore life pretty hard, at 4:30 every day, usually in bed around 8 to 9 most nights. We were drinking and I found myself very exhausted and tired. I decided I was going to crash early. They were up playing video games, looking at paints for the walls in our house. And general camaraderie that normally happens when he's over. Apparently, after they have been drinking for a while, stuff came to light while my friend was asking questions such as would I ever be into the idea of a threesome, or more of a poly relationship. These questions took my wife Bioshock, and I guess she was dismissive of the questions but not overly dismissive of the situation. And they continued talking about my friend's past and when he realized he might be not straight or bi, and apparently that led to them making out, which led to foreplay and cunnilingus. According to my friend, after I confronted him about the night in question, nothing more happened, and he also revealed that he has had deep feelings for me for the last couple of years, more than just a friend. My wife says she doesn't remember very much of it, due to heavy drinking, saying that she blocked out most of the night and she's been trying to piece it together before she talked with me about it almost a week later. My friend says she was pretty coherent and seemed into it. Pisses me off he puts it that way. And when I got up at around 11:30 to take a piss, I noticed he was still up. They were fully closed at the time, and I had a conversation with the both of them about her going to bed since we work in the morning. The next day seemed off to me. I don't know if that was just my innate suspicion of odd situations happening. But neither one of them told me what happened, and one of them only told me when confronted. My wife felt really horrible about the situation and disgusted with herself, according to her, and has been having a tough time herself coming to terms with the situation and her actions. I'm not really sure how to feel about this whole situation. Figured I could talk with you guys as a neutral party because I feel really isolated in my ability to talk with people about this. I don't necessarily want my family finding out, so I can't talk with them, and I don't really have any other friends that I feel close enough to talk with except for the one who's involved in the incident. Just feel really betrayed by both of them, but funny enough, I only feel extreme anger towards my friend and just hurt by my wife.